so today we're carrying on with chapter 4b. Jodie turned and stared. Her heart lurched in honor as she saw not a camera in Dr. Taylor's hand, but a gun, and he was aiming it directly at Apollo. "No!" she screamed and threw herself at him with all her might. She staggered, grunting, and rocked back on his heels, nearly losing his balance. He clutched desperately at the rigging with both hands to save himself. He had missed his shot, but he just managed to keep hold of the gun. Jodie heard a clank against the stainless steel lines, and she was frightened. He might still use it on Apollo, or on her. The sunglasses had slipped down Dr. Taylor's nose, and his watery brown eyes, angry and astonished, stared at Jodie. "I won't let you shoot him," Jodie cried passionately. "I won't let you hurt Apollo." "What on earth are you talking about, you crazy little girl?" he gasped breathlessly. "What's the problem?" Craig came hurriedly over to the forward deck, altered by Jodie's scream. "Your daughter nearly pushed me overboard," Dr. Taylor spluttered. "You was going to shoot Apollo," Jodie said, her eyes appealing to her father for help. She saw his eyebrows go up as he noticed the gun. "I had no idea anyone would be carrying a weapon on board, Dr. Taylor," Craig said grimly. Squinting in the bright sunlight, Dr. Taylor straightened the sunglasses so they covered his eyes once more. He moved cautiously out of the rigging and displayed the gun, lying in the flat of his hand, to Jodie's father. "This is not a weapon," he said stiffly. "Perhaps you don't recognize it, Dr. McGrath, because it is the very latest model. But if you examine it, you will see that it is in fact a very sophisticated tagging device, and it costs a lot of money," he ended, glaring at Jodie. Craig took the instrument and whistled. "I've heard about these," he said. Jodie felt her own shoulders relax. She supposed she's out to apologize to Dr. Taylor, although she was still a little suspicious. "Sorry for pushing you over, Dr. Taylor," she said politely. "How does it work?" Dr. Taylor grunted and grudging acceptance of Jodie's apology, then explained how the tagging device worked. "It fires a dart fitted with a microchip," he began. "Once embedded in the dolphin's flesh, the microchip provides information about the animal's movement." "Embedded in the dolphin's flesh?" Jodie repeated, dismayed. Perhaps she'd been right not to trust Dr. Taylor, after all. "Doesn't it hurt the dolphin?" she asked. Dr. Taylor shrugged, as if he hadn't thought of this before. "I bought the equipment from a very reputable company," he blustered. "The dolphins have very sensitive skin, you know," Jodie insisted. "Yes, they do, honey," Craig agreed, putting a comforting arm around Jodie's shoulder. "And some of the earlier methods of tagging probably didn't cause the dolphins some discomfort. In fact, some people still argue against any such tagging," he added, looking at Dr. Taylor. The scientist's round face went even redder. But Jodie's father continued, "I think Dr. Taylor is right about this latest method. The darts are so tiny that the dolphin will feel only a tiny jab." Jodie trusted her father's judgment, but she didn't think Dr. Taylor should be left off so lightly. "Would you let someone shoot one of those things into your flesh?" she asked him. "I wouldn't object," said Dr. Taylor loftily. "If it was in the interest of science, I would gladly agree to the slight discomfort." Jodie imagined a room full of scientists tracking Dr. Taylor's movement. She saw her father's mouth twitch and knew he was thinking the same thing. "Well, now we've got that cleared up," Craig said, with a wink to Jodie. "Why don't we all go below for some lunch?" "But what about my tagging?" said Dr. Taylor. "Well, to be honest, I don't think it'll be much use here," Craig replied bluntly. We'll soon sail out of the Dolphin range before you've had time to pick up any useful information on the tracking microchip. Dr. Taylor sighed. I haven't thought of that, he said sorrowfully as he followed everyone down to the galley. Although Jody tried not to show it, she couldn't help feeling cheered by the fact that Apollo had escaped being tagged. Never mind, said Gina to Dr. Taylor, as she was told about the recent drama on deck. There'll be another chance. Here, have some of this chicken salad. Dr. Taylor frowned, but accepted the plate she handed him. Of course, he said, and better ones. I'd rather track a dolphin that's part of a school anyway. After lunch, Jody settled down at her computer. Brittany had taken herself off, out of sight and hearing, to their cabin, and the twins were deeply absorbed, for once, in some computer game on their own computer at the other end of the main cabin. Jody enjoyed the peace and quiet, looking at her pictures of Apollo and choosing the best one to post on the website. She also wrote a description of what she'd seen and then wrote a long email to Lindsay. She filled in her best friend on everything that had been happening, especially enjoying the chance to let off steam about Brittany and to describe her first encounter with a wild dolphin. Jody wished Lindsay could have been with her, and for the first time she realized just how much she was going to miss her friend. That afternoon passed swiftly and peacefully. Then towards evening, the motion of the boat changed dramatically. The smooth sailing had ended. It felt as if they were being dragged roughly over a very rocky road. Jody couldn't concentrate with all the jouncing and bouncing. She was logging off her computer as Brittany came reeling out of the cabin, groaning loudly. She looked positively green. I'm going to be sick, she cried loudly. Maddie had been working across the table from Jody. She jumped up as soon as Brittany appeared and spoke sympathetically but firmly. Get up on deck. I'll come with you. In fact, let's all go. We'll all feel better, and we could ask Harry if it's possible to change course to find a gentler motion. But when they emerged on deck, it seemed a different world from the clear and brilliant day Jody remembered from earlier. Dark clouds lowered overhead, and lightning flared against the sky behind them. Harry was far too absorbed in the demands of steering the boat through such a rough sea to pay much attention at the woes of a seasick crew. When Maddie asked if he could change course, he shook his head grimly and spoke above the noise of the rising wind and sea. I've just changed course, he said. We need more speed, not less. He broke off to shout orders to Cam and Craig. Then turning back, he added, I'm sorry you're finding it a bit rough, but it would be worse if we took a different direction. He took a deep breath and gazed ahead. There's a big storm on the way, he explained, and we've got to try to outrun it. And that's all for chapter 4.